Hello, my name is Glenn and welcome to my channel. Her channel. Her name is Sakura. I'm just her co-host. Yeah, so I just want to talk about whatever I feel like to be honest on this channel. I do have another channel where I do like food content at the moment. I used to vlog. Here I'm just gonna be doing really whatever I feel like that's not really related to that. So basically today I wanted to talk about a Korean drama that I just finished on Netflix called Cashero. This isn't like a standard Korean drama because it's like a superhero kind of concept. I am personally a big fan of the superhero concept, and like I'm really deep into like Marvel, DC, but it's not just that. Like pretty much any type of superhero content that comes out, I just get pretty into it. So I was pretty hopeful for this one, but I was slightly apprehensive because of the gimmick of him losing money every time he uses his powers. When I read that in the description, I felt kind of like off-put slightly. Just feels my fan was on making noise. Sorry about that. Anyway, yeah, I took a few notes while I was watching it because the thing is, I'm a very easy to please person. Like I'll watch things that people are like, this is the worst movie ever, and I'll be like, it was fine, I liked it. And I'm that type of person where I can enjoy stuff that people generally think is like crap. So when I do watch something that I am, seeing issues with, that's when I know that there's problems with it, because I'm usually the last person to notice all these issues. I was able to make it through the whole thing, but I was reading online that a lot of reviews were saying that they were struggling to finish it. Like some people didn't even get to the end because of how like bored they got. Honestly, there were parts where I was kind of bored, but I ended up just skipping forward until it got more interesting, to be honest. I didn't do that in too many points though, but there were quite a few parts that just were really hard to watch. So before I get into it, there is going to be quite a few spoilers in this video. That's just going to be the nature of this. So I am going to be talking about like all the way up to the end. So yeah, just consider yourself warned before I go on. So overall, this whole drama felt really rushed. Honestly, I feel like up to a certain point, maybe like episode 6 or 7, I think, because it's 8 episodes, but I think around episode 6 it felt fine, but then the last 2 episodes were just too fast. I feel like honestly they should have had at least 1 or 2 more episodes for the villain to be fleshed out a bit more, because he was a villain up until that point, but he got his powers in the final episode, and then he had like 10-15 minutes of like going on a rampage as a villain. I feel like they should have had an episode where he got his powers, they fought him and they lost, and then they had to kind of like work out how to defeat him or something. But this just it was just like he got his powers, he was really strong, and they beat him within 10 minutes, and it was slightly underwhelming, to be honest. Okay, so going through the characters, we've got Sang-woong, the main character. He was fine, I guess. I just felt like his motivations didn't feel that like strong and convincing to me, and he just felt very like he felt very plain in a sense. Honestly, I feel like the strongest character here was Min-suk, which was his partner in the series. She seemed to kind of like drive everything, and I feel like if she wasn't in this show, a lot of this plot would not have happened. Obviously she's not perfect, there are a lot of issues with her too, but I did like that they didn't paint her as like this perfect partner, but they also didn't paint her as like the evil partner as well. They just like, she was kind of like perfectly flawed in a sense, where she was a good partner that the main character loved, but she makes mistakes and she wasn't perfect. She doesn't she doesn't make all the right choices, and I think that was I don't know, it was kind of humanizing, which I did like. Although there was like one thing that was really getting to me was at the very beginning when Sung uses his mother's life savings to save a whole bunch of people on a bus. She gets pissed off at him for using all that money, the money they were hoping would get them an apartment. I get where she was coming from, but it was what frustrated me, and I feel like someone should have brought it up as well, was that he saved a bus full of people, and she was only thinking about herself. Like that can be realistic. There are people like that. I know, but it was just like I feel like I feel like that should have been addressed. Like, how is she being so selfish? But then at the same time, it could have been like a critique of the Korean like housing system. For those who don't know, like I used to live in Korea, and the housing system there is insane. Like renting is fine, but it's also very weird. Like you have to make like these ginormous like housing deposits. But it's the way the housing system works is insane. It's like it is just like in the show. It's like a lottery, which is crazy. And there's all these things, all these loopholes you can do to like increase your chances. And yeah, one of the things you can do is to be married. So it kind of causes a lot of issues in society. Okay, so another thing that kind of confused me, I was trying to give it a pass, to be honest, is the lore of the powers. It didn't seem super consistent. They showed like a few of the characters' powers. So one of the rules for the powers is that there's a cost to use them. So the main character Sang-eun, the cost to use his power is that he loses money. So the money has to be attached to him, and every time he uses it, the money disappears. There's another girl named Bonmi, and her power is like telekinesis, but she has to consume calories to be able to use it. So she basically needs to constantly be eating food, consuming calories. So the calories that she stores up in her body is what she uses to be able to use that power. Whereas there's what's his name? Hoin. He's the third power guy in the trio that make up the main party of this show. His powers is like, I think he can like walk through walls and stuff. I never fully got what his power was, because he seems pretty strong, but he can only use his power when he's intoxicated. So he pretty much always needs to be drunk to use it, which means obviously he can still use it and do all that, but if he gets too drunk, it's gonna hinder his power. It's gonna hinder his ability to function, but it's also gonna it's gonna affect his decision making. He might get dizzy. There's so many things that could happen while on that. But all the villains who are using their powers, it always just seemed like they got to use it without any cost at all. There's this guy that the first villain uses to, like, she kind of like infuses him with a whole bunch of powers, and he just uses it all. One of them is he gets like really, really buff and like pretty much gets super strength. It doesn't seem like he has any cost in doing that, and he also can like create fire with his hands. The only thing, I mean, it did seem like he burned his hands, so that, I guess that kind of makes sense, but it just seemed like all the villains got to use it without any cost. Even Jonathan at the end, he didn't seem to have any. He was using so many powers as well, and they mentioned that he was facing a consequence of it, but it didn't really seem like he was, to be honest. So that was something that I felt was weird. There was this whole thing about the police wanting to arrest Sang-eun, which didn't make sense to me. So at first it seemed like he was a suspect of a crime because he was at a crime scene when something had taken place. So I got that. They went and questioned him, and that's pretty much it. They didn't have like evidence. Like, so he did get like, I think he got arrested, but then he got bailed out. But there was no evidence that he committed any crime. And this crime was him saving the people on the bus. Just because he was there when it happened, they think he pushed the bus. These police officers, so only one of the police officers knows about the powers. He has, like, one of the head police officer has powers himself, but all the others don't know about these powers. How do they think that he pushed it off? And then they were so set on arresting him through the whole series. Like, I don't get what they think they were going to arrest him for. Like, what were they arresting him for? It just didn't make any sense to me. Like, they never really said that they had anything on him. All they said is that that he was a suspect. So that just didn't make any sense to me at all. Okay, and honestly, I was kind of dissatisfied with Joanna's death. Yeah, she just seemed like a typical K-drama villain. So nothing too much of note there. It's more so her brother Jonadan. A lot of things seem really illogical to me about him. Like a lot of his decisions didn't really make too much sense to me. He kept saying that he wanted to get Sangung's powers, but he didn't really do. I don't feel like he really did like what he needed to make that happen. But not only that, he wanted his powers, but then he killed the girl who makes the power, like who does all the whole like extracting and transferring the powers and all that. He killed her. I'm guessing since she like implanted all the powers into him, like a whole bunch of other ones, maybe he didn't want Sangung's powers anymore. But it still seemed like he wanted it at the end. But then who's gonna do it from now? And then he took like 6 vials of powers, but he only seemed to be using 2 of them. I couldn't really see him using any more than like 2 during that whole fight at the end. So I'm not really sure what was going on there. Okay, and then at that ending scene, so obviously like when you have like superhero movies and shows and stuff, one of the typical things they do at the end, at that final boss fight, they always have it so the boss is winning and then the hero is like on the ground injured, and then something happens and they miraculously get up and do whatever they do to defeat the boss. That wasn't a surprise, but the way that it happened, I was like so confused. He was pretty much almost dead. In order to heal, he needs to have money on him because his body will consume the money to regenerate his body. Somehow all these bystanders, they were like in the apartments nearby, they knew how his powers worked, and they all just started throwing money at him. They're throwing money from wherever they are, so the money wasn't even near him. This made no sense. How did they all know how his powers work? I don't know how that happened. They also seem to be throwing like an endless supply of money. I don't know how they had that much cash on them, especially because these days a lot of Koreans, they don't carry a lot of cash on them. Everything's card over there now. So I don't know what's going on with that. But on top of all that, Jonathan, who's like pissed off and wants to kill Sangung so bad, he just sits there and watches him collect all the money. Like he was like shooting like electricity at all these innocent people like 5 minutes ago, and now he's just watching them and waiting for them to give money to Sangung so he can recover and defeat him. That was wild. And then somehow Bonmi had a bread. She basically passed out in one of the apartments and she didn't have enough energy to use her powers. She needed more calories, and somehow there was a bread on the floor next to her from her sister. Like, where was her sister? How did she get in there? That stuff, like, I get it, they wanted to seem like miraculous, but that kind of took me out of it. I was like, how did she get there? That was weird. That just did not make sense to me. Like, she could have just like gone to like the kitchen and grabbed like some snacks or something. It could have been like a house that had kids and there was like kid snacks, like sugary snacks or something that had a whole lot of calories in it. It could have just been something like that. I don't know, but then they needed a way to get her to go back and find her sister. But I don't think they needed to do it this way because it was really like took me out of the immersion. Honestly though, this video is a lot of me complaining because these are all the things that were really bothering me about watching it. But overall, I actually didn't mind it. Like I really enjoyed watching this. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't great either. And then looking at IMDb, it's currently a 6.5 out of 10 on IMDb. Honestly, I'd probably give it about the same as well. It's not that great. It's not going to be like the best show that you've ever seen, but it's not that bad either. Like it's a fun short watch. I think I'm gonna move on to whatever next show I end up watching. I'm not sure what it is. Let me know if you have any recommendations. But yeah, that's how I feel about this one. It wasn't bad. I enjoyed my watch, but those were things that I just couldn't get past, and I've been thinking about it. It's been a few days, and I'm still thinking about it. So yeah, hopefully whatever I watch next is a lot better than this. That's all I thought about. So see you in the next video. Bye.